5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Hey everybody, you are tuned into Uptown with Mona, your go-to show for everything poetry, hip-hop, and entertainment. I'm your host, Mona Baudet, and we've got a dope show for you today. So sit back, relax, and let's get this party started right. Whew. Good evening, everybody. It's your girl Mona B here. Thank you so much for listening in. You know, Monday nights is my thing. I can't wait to interview on Monday. I don't know. It's something about these people that I've been interviewing that, oh my God, I'm just so excited. So we're here. And before we get started, let me start my intro. Welcome to Uptown with Mona. We meet every Monday at 7 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, and again on Thursday at 6 p.m. on withoutwarningradio.com. Please go to Uptown with Mona, last name Baudet, on Facebook and join, please, because that page is feeling real lonely. And also go to uptown.with.mona on Instagram, because that page is also feeling really freaking lonely, y'all. I don't know what's going on with y'all. Y'all need to really come on. Y'all follow me. Y'all need to come on, man. Okay? And if you'd like to donate to Uptown with Mona, my Cash App is Uptown with Mona with the money sign. If you have an interesting story or you want to be interviewed, hit me up on uptownwithmona@gmail.com. Also, I've been telling y'all about this. Y'all need to get your tickets. December 16th, 2024 at Comedy in Harlem on 147th and St. Nicholas Avenue at 7 p.m. It's the Naughty List, a Mocha Lounge reunion. It's going down. Tickets are going fast. It's going to be an amazing event, all erotic poetry. We're gonna have adult games. We're gonna have question and answers, and it's just gonna be a great night. I'll be there. I'll be spitting some poetry, maybe. But it's gonna be a wonderful venue. So I hope to see y'all there. Now, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this shit, because your girl got one hell of artist coming on in a minute. Man, let me tell you something. I saw him about maybe 6 months ago and I started following him, and damn it, if he's not the sexiest poet that I've seen, his work is, I don't think he doesn't really spit erotic, but his words are so fucking sensual, and just how he does his thing is just, listen, y'all gonna find out, because I'm gonna try and get him to, maybe I'll get him to say a piece or two while he's here, right? So let's bring up Obbie West. His name is Obbie West, and yes, Mr. Obbie West, I want to thank you. I really want to thank you for being here. Something's going on with the Facebook. Oh no, it's not as good. Okay, I was checking the Facebook. Yeah, Obbie, it's so great to have you. Thank you so much for coming on and sitting with me and chit chatting. Let me get to know you, because I heard about you and I was like, I need to talk to this dude, man. Let me stop stalking him on Facebook. On Instagram, and bring him on so so I can hear him live and in color. How you feeling today?
I'm blessed. How are you? Before we
Good.
start, thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you, because I was trying to holler a minute, and it took me a minute, because I was like, this guy's not gonna, he's just too good. He's not gonna wanna. And I was like, you know what? Fuck that. Let me just try and see. I'm happy to have you. You know, I've been following you for a minute, and a few people that I asked about you, they all said the same thing. This guy is dope, and you need to interview him, and not a pre-recorded show. He needs to be live and in color. So
I
You know,
appreciate that.
yes, yes. So I know I like to ask my guests at the first before I get into the questions. I like to ask my guests, "How was your day?
It
How was
was
your
good.
day?"
I had a
Yeah,
good day. Progressive.
it was good. You got some stuff done. You was all is well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was progressive.
Good, good. Okay, so now I'm gonna ask you 16 questions. I call it 16 bars. Okay.
How was your
And,
day?
huh? My day was, you know what I was doing all day, Obi? I was cooking my Thanksgiving dinner today because I don't want to cook Wednesday night and Thursday. My grandkids are coming over on Wednesday. My daughter's coming over on Thursday. My grandkids always come over on the weekends to see me. And so I was cooking half my Thanksgiving dinner today, the stuff that I could put in the refrigerator, and then tomorrow I'll do some more, and then Monday I'll be cooking my turkey in the morning. So, and I don't really celebrate the holidays, I really don't, but because my grandchildren want me to cook, Grandma, are you cooking Thanksgiving? Please, can you please cook Thanksgiving dinner? Okay, fine. Whatever the kids want, that's what I give them.
Yeah.
So that was my day, cooking all day.
So I see that don't stop, huh?
No,
Yielding
no,
to my daughter's the same way, and my father's the same way. I asked my father, I said, I'm gonna fly you to Las Vegas for Christmas. He's like, nah, you ain't got to spend that money. I said, but Brooklyn, that's my daughter's name. Brooklyn wants you to see her apartment. All right, I'll be out there.
uh-huh.
Right. So whatever the grandkids want, he does
That's right. Whatever the grandkids want, I don't care because they ain't mine. When they
it.
done, it's time for them to go home. I keep them for the weekend, from Friday to Sunday. Sunday morning, I'm like, everybody get up, time for y'all to go home.
I dig it.
I love it. I love it. I love my grandkids. I really do. But yeah, I have big grandkids. My grandkids are big and they still love coming to grandma. They don't like being in the street. They don't like hanging out. They want to hang out with grandma. They want to eat up grandma's food, play video games all weekend, and just hang out.
That's
So
good. That's good.
yeah. Okay, so let's get to some of these questions, okay?
Let's do it.
All right, so first question. Can you tell us about your journey into spoken word and what inspired you to become an artist?
Great question. My journey in spoken word, I didn't know anything about poetry growing up. Poetry
Uh-huh.
wasn't part of my upbringing. It was part of education, right? We talked about Shakespeare and things of that nature, but it was nothing that caught our interest.
Right.
I grew up in Los Angeles, California. Right, I
Okay.
grew up just like most black men who grew up in the 1980s, where we didn't really have the genetic license to talk about things that were emotional. We didn't have a genetic license to express ourselves. Later on in life, at around the age of 31, actually, I learned about poetry, and poetry gave me the creative license to talk
Uh-huh.
about all those things that I didn't have the genetic license to talk about in the past. So it
Got
was kind of a way for me to a cowardish way of being brave. I can hide behind these poems and you don't know if they're about me or if they're about somebody else. So it gives me the platform to talk about things I've always wanted to talk about in a one-way conversation where the audience is been brought there to listen. So, if I'm holding a conversation with you and I say something you don't agree with, you got the space to rebut me. You got the space
right.
to rebut me, and you got the space to say something, but on the stage it's a one-way conversation. So that was the draw for me.
Okay. Before we get to the next question, how long have you been doing poetry and do you remember your first poem?
Remember the name of it or remember the poem? Yes. I remember the words? No, I don't remember the words. I was 31 when I started doing poetry. I'm 43.
Okay.
So 12 years. Yeah.
Wow.
And the first poem was called Thank You Poetry, right? It was one of those things where I remember a week prior to me going to this event where I was introduced to poetry.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the shower on my way to work, and I remember standing in the shower feeling absolutely empty. I felt like my life was being lived to fulfill the requirements of this organization, but if I didn't work for that organization, I didn't know who I was.
Right.
So in the shower, I felt this pull to like, who are you? And a week later, I went to a show that was advertised as a comedy show. When I showed up, I learned it was an open mic. They started introducing all these poets. I wasn't excited about the poetry. I wanted to see the comedian. And right now today, I don't even remember who the comedian was. All I remember is the poetry.
Wow.
So that that event was the answer to my question that I had for myself a week prior when I was standing in the shop.
Wow.
Hence, the name of the first poem is Thank You Poetry.
And you don't remember it. I wish you could, but it's okay. Thank you. All right. Question 2. How do you define spoken word and what sets it apart from other forms of poetry?
I don't know that I have a definition for spoken word that's separate from any other. Well, we have different types of poems. We have
Right.
haikus and we have sonnets or bonnets, right? I'm not even intelligent on the different types of poetry intentionally. I
Right.
intentionally refuse to learn the other forms of poetry and the rules to them. Because once you learn the rule, then you be a little pressure to abide by it. Then it rips the freedom away for me. So to get back to your question, spoken word for me, if I had to define it right now, it would be a very, very, very liberating form of expression where
Got it.
any vice, any device that you need in order to express yourself, whether or not you need to have an ugly face, if you need to use creative devices like rhyming or metaphors or analogies, if you need to cry, all those things, I think is spoken word, where other forms of poetry just seem to be a little bit more stricter. They seem to have guidelines to where this is what it needs to sound like, this is what it needs to look like. So I would define spoken word as the most liberated
Right.
subsidiary of the um the hierarchy umbrella that we call poetry.
Okay. Okay. Um, for the audience, if you have any questions for Obi West, you can put them in the chat and we can answer a question or two. Okay. Hey, Nicole. Miss Nicole Hill is here. I interviewed her like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. All right. Question number 3. As an advocate, what social issues are you most passionate about and how do you incorporate those into your work?
Great question. Um, abuse reduction. Abuse reduction. I grew up in a household where there was abuse.
Okay.
So early in life, I dealt with the collateral damages of abuse. I wasn't directly being abused, but I witnessed it.
Right.
So to see a person that you love be abused by someone else who you love, it creates a conflict within that individual. So as a result of that, I developed an absolute disdain for abuse. And then back to the previous question, I didn't have a
Yes.
foundation or a platform to express it, right? So poetry gave me the platform to express my disdain for abuse. So I am a advocate for sexual assault and harassment prevention. So I go around to federal government organizations and colleges, organizations that have a mandatory requirement to address that topic, and I facilitate trainings on sexual assault and harassment prevention, domestic violence. Um, and it's all facilitated through poetry. So if I'm not doing
Wow.
poetry for nightlife, the flyers that you see are nightlife events. Those are the events where we have to persuade people to come. The
Right.
the the educational standpoint, and we don't have to. These it's a mandatory
Mm-hmm.
training for the people who's part of this organization. So there's no flyers. I show up, and those people are in the audience, and we talk about those things. So
Wow.
that's how I incorporate it into what I do.
That is so dope. That's real dope. It's funny. Not fun. It's not funny, but I have another show that I'm started. I just recently started, and we're trying to find our way. Me and my homegirl, Jay Nicole. We're starting a show called Uptown with Mona and Jay Nicole, and each week we'll be talking about different subject matters. And one of the subject matters we will be talking about is abuse and all types of different types of abuse.
Yeah,
And maybe if you're free when we do get to that topic, I could bring you on and you could talk about your program and you could talk about all the things that you do regarding the sexual abuse or whatever abuse it is that you are describing, if that
yeah, I
makes
would love
sense.
to. Thank
Okay,
you. I would love
wonderful.
to.
Wonderful. Put that in your notes. Okay. Next question. Number 4. Can you share a particular performance that has had a significant impact on you or your audience?
Yeah, Richmond, Virginia,
Okay.
2023.
Mm-hmm.
February, maybe February 2023, Richmond, Virginia. The reason
Okay.
why
Okay.
is prior to Richmond, I was featuring, right? Traditional
Yes.
way that poets show up. You have someone who has a show and they call you and they say, can you feature at the show? And then you pack all your bags and you go through TSA and then you get off the airplane and you go to the show and then you sit on stage for a lesser time than it took you to go through TSA.
Right.
Get about 15 minutes to feature. And at some point, that process started to feel extremely underwhelming for me. It
Okay.
felt like one of those situations where you go to a high-end restaurant and you pay $100 for a steak and they bring you out this little bitty piece of meat with a piece of grass on the top of it, and then you eat it, then you leave and got to find something to eat. That's how it felt.
Right.
I left the stage not feeling fulfilled because I didn't have enough time with those audience members. And then there would be people who would come to me after the show and was like, it was great to see you in person. We came from Pittsburgh. And I'll ask, how far is Pittsburgh? And they'll say it's 5 hours away. So they drove five
Wow.
hours. They got a hotel in that area. They're going to be there until the next day and they're going to drive back. They made a total event out of this so that I can be on the stage for 15 minutes. All right. So
Wow.
let's go back to Virginia. Someone in Virginia asked me if I could come feature at their place. They have a health drink diner
Okay. Mm-hmm.
and they wanted to host me. And I think it was the first time they had a show of this nature. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I asked them how many other artists, and they said, there's no other artists. It's just you.
Right.
So now I have to be able to facilitate an hour and a half show by myself.
Mm.
And I put the set together and I did the show and it worked out. And that
Okay.
was, for me, that was the indication that I was capable of doing it. So from there, I started doing the private sessions with Obbie West, where
Right.
I travel to a place and there's me and maybe a sound therapist or an instrumentalist will open for like 30 minutes. And then after that, it's me for an hour and a half. So it's a 2 hour show. But that show in Richmond showed me I was capable of doing it. Other than that, I
Okay.
would have still been, you know, leaving poetry events hungry.
Okay. I hear you. Are you still doing that show?
The private sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have four scheduled. February, I'll start back. I have four scheduled in February, going back to
Okay.
Virginia, from
Hmm.
Virginia to Chicago, then Dallas, Texas, then I'll be in Oklahoma City. So I travel from state to state with the show, and the audience is limited to 40 people. We only sell
Okay.
40 tickets.
Okay.
Uh, I want the show to be intimate. I want to be able to make eye contact with everybody in the room versus
I
having 300 people and the furthest person in the back, I never see them.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Wow, that's dope. That's real dope. I can't wait to interview you on my other show so that way we can really get to the meat and potatoes of what you're doing regarding, all that. I think it's real dope.
Thank
All right.
you.
Mm-hmm. Number 5. How do you approach the writing process for your spoken word pieces?
Without approaching it, right? I allow it to be extremely organic. It's not
Okay.
planned. I don't say today I'm gonna sit down and write for 30 minutes. At that point, it turns into homework. And you know how we feel about homework. So it's very organic. I just stay present throughout the day. I don't eliminate anything. If there's something that's part of life, then it's eligible to be written about. So if I'm traversing Earth throughout the course of the day and I hear something that's interesting, I jot it down. It might be a line, it might be two lines, it might be a stanza,
Mm-hmm.
and it's in a section of my phone that's called seeds. So
Okay.
seeds have all these random, disjointed ideas, and periodically
Okay.
I go back and I start reading those seeds, and then another sentence will come to mind. Eventually,
Mhm.
those things become poems. So it's very, very, very organic process. It's there's no rules.
Mhm.
It's just what I think and how I want to say it. So
Right.
it's in a nutshell, that's how I approach it.
Okay, so Nicole Hill says, "Do you have a muse, and what moves your pen?"
Amused to Lon AC. That was
Okay.
in 2000, was that 12 or something like that when I started doing poetry. Someone gave me a Talam AC CD. That was the first poet I ever heard on CD. And I listened to this, I overindulged in this CD so much that I began to subconsciously inherit his delivery. And then I would
Okay.
watch him on YouTube so much that I subconsciously started to inherit his mannerisms to the point where
Mm-hmm.
I went to the place and I signed up for the open mic. And when I left the stage, the guy came to me. He said, "I can tell who you watch." I said, "Who?" And he said, "Talam." And I was flattered for
Wow.
a few seconds, and then after that, I felt like like a fraud, right?
Right.
So I disconnected from poetry. I didn't allow myself to intake anything from the outside. I just kind of locked myself in my own space. That way, I don't have anything to imitate. If I don't know what's out there, then I have nothing to copy. And that's what allowed me to find myself. So, Talam has been intricate in the development of my career from the time it started up until right now today.
Uh-huh.
So he's been forever my muse since I've been doing this. And what moves my pen, I think, was the second half of the question.
Yes.
Just life in general. Anything that's part of life is worth writing about. So
Right.
life in general, and then just the blessing to have the ability that moves me. I won't squander that blessing, so it keeps me active.
Right. What was I going to say? You've been writing, oh no, I know what I was going to say. Talam AC, I met him, had to be about, I don't remember what year. It was probably around 2010. And I think I saw him, and if I remember correctly, I think I remember seeing him at damn, I can't remember now. I just lost the thought. He's just really, really, he's dope. I met him, and it was him and Lamar Hill,
Mhm.
both of them. Those, and I remember seeing them, and when they got off the stage, I was like, I'm not getting on after these guys. Are you kidding me? I
Mhm.
felt so intimidated. I said, oh
Yeah.
no. And then I heard Lamar Hill spit Church, my favorite poem called Church. And I was like, I'm not going on after these guys. They can forget it. Forget about it. I'm just gonna sit here and listen. And I understand what you mean when you said you had to stop. You had to like go into your own little world because you had to find yourself. I understand that. I don't
Right.
listen to other people's poetry often because I don't want to sound like them. Like when I first
Mhm.
started writing poetry, I my favorite poet is I have a couple of favorite poets, and when I started spitting, I was starting to sound like Nikki Giovanni. I was starting to sound like Michelle Andiocello or Sonia Sanchez. Oh my God, because I love anything about love. I love writing about love. So I understand. I had to find I had to find myself because yeah, I get that part. I was starting to sound like them also. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Poetry is
it's
poetry is like an accent.
yes.
Where I have some nephews that's from Los Angeles, but they moved to Mississippi early in life. When you talk to them, they sound like they was born and raised in Mississippi. They've been around that
Right.
accent for so long that that's become the way that they pronounce words. And poetry is like an accent. And I think when you overindulge in everything outside of yourself for elongated periods of time, you develop that accent, which is why
Mm-hmm.
in the slam community, there's a lot of similarity in sound.
Yes.
Because a lot of those artists, they work together and
Yes.
they you know what I mean? So they kind of inherit that accent. So
Yep. Even the
sometimes,
younger poets, the younger ones that are coming up now, they all sound the same. Like the way the rhythm of how they spit, all of them sound the same. The way they pronunciate their words, they all sound alike. And I'm like, man, I'm glad I didn't come up in that era. Because I wouldn't want to. They all sound the same. And I remember hearing it. Matter of fact, I was in a room listening to some of the poets the other night on Saturday night and I was listening specifically to hear how they spit. And I was like, wow, they all know each other. They all got to know each other because they all sound the same. But you know what? How you get it is how you get it. And that's, the main thing is how you get it is, how you get it. And then you kind of like finagle and find your way, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So number 6. What role does your cultural background play in your work as an artist?
what role does my cultural background play in my role as an artist? I think we talked about part of it.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how I grew up in a culture where men from the 50s that was born in the 50s were taught that you rule your household with an iron fist, right? That was
Right.
culture.
Right.
So I was an offspring of that culture. We talked about how that affected it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from the mud, right? I'm from a place where things that other people would feel like it's just asinine lifestyle was normalized for me.
Right.
So when I did leave those areas, things that would phase other people didn't phase me, right? I remember joining the military and we get off this bus. You got these drill sergeants with these big old hats and they yelling at people and they saying, get on the ground, do push-ups. And they yelling and they yelling. And you have people who were alongside of me who they would go through extreme measures to free
Mm.
themselves from that type of pressure. Some of them was trying to overdose on like mouthwash, like drinking a bunch. They couldn't
Wow.
handle the pressure. But I grew up in a place where they don't ask you to get on the ground. They come put their hand on the back of your shoulder and pull your arm back, and then they put you on the ground. You know
Right.
what I mean? So you're asking me to get on the ground. This doesn't even feel like real authority. So what was a laughing matter to me was worth them trying to kill themselves.
Mm.
So that type of culture has given me the freedom to just move in a way that's comfortable for me and rid myself of the burden of being concerned about perception. So I
Right.
think that's where the freedom in the writing comes from, where
Mm.
I can play a character during the writing. I'm not worried about whether or not what I'm doing is going to be received well by an audience. And I think that was influenced by having the culture to where things were so tumultuous
Right.
that lesser things in life don't even bother you, like what a person's thinking. You know what I mean? I was worried about what a person's shooting. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's largely how my culture affected.
Wow. How long were you in the service?
21 years.
Wow. 21 years. How old are you? Boy.
43.
Wow. 21 years. Okay. I know you've seen a lot. I bet you've seen a lot of stuff. Did you what was going on in the 20 years ago? What did they have it? They had a war 20 years ago, right? Wasn't that the I forgot. Some war.
It started in 2001.
Okay. Right. Wow. And you was in that. You was in all that. Mm, okay. Question number 7. How do you engage with your audience during performances, and why is that interaction so important?
He said, how do I engage? Primarily
Mhm.
through verbal communication, right? I make eye contact.
Okay.
I look at people during poetry. If I'm talking to you and you look away,
Yes.
I'm gonna feel like during that moment of time you're not listening.
Okay.
Right? So for me, I want poetry to have that exact same effect where the audience members, the people who are supporting me, feel like they're not just listening to me recite a poem, but they're being spoke to, right? If I stand on the stage, I sit down when I
Right.
recite poems.
Uh-huh.
In most conversations right now, I'm sitting down and you're sitting down. In most conversations, if somebody's standing and somebody's sitting, somebody is exercising a level of dominance, and then
Okay.
somebody is in an inferior position. When both people are on the same playing field, most times they're in the same position. They're either both standing up or sitting down. So the audience is sitting down, so I sit down.
Okay.
And then if I stood on the stage and you gave me a mic and I recited a poem, I feel like that guy that's on the corner just yelling at the sky and you're
Mm.
watching me doing it. I feel like I'm just allowing you to watch me recite a poem.
Mhm.
Versus if I'm sitting down and I'm looking at you, now you feel like you're part of that experience.
Mm.
So I engage by making eye contact. I engage by putting my body in the same position that the audience is in. I engage by not being married to a certain speed of delivery, but
Got it.
being able to deliver a poem in a very conversational tone to where the everybody in the room is capable of listening or catching on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important for that reason aforementioned. It allows the audience to feel like they're part of that experience versus just feeling like they're watching somebody go through something.
Okay. Okay. Number 8. Can you talk about the challenges you faced in your career and how you've overcome them?
Great question. My challenge is, well, we talked about one. I had a
Mm-hmm.
challenge with not being fulfilled in the way that I was showing up in the poetry community,
Right.
and how I was able to start the private sessions, which now gives me the space to be fulfilled. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
Two is, you said we was both born in the 1900s, right? During the 1900s, there was a period of time where there wasn't no cell phones, and
Right.
we absolutely survived. We didn't feel a void because we didn't have a cell phone. But now, if you're missing your cell phone, it's like, how the hell was I living without this? That's how I see. Yeah, that's how I see poetry. I have no clue how I was able to function prior to poetry. It's become like my lung, right?
I understand.
So yeah, so because it became so important, things that were there's a difference between something that provides for you and something that fulfills you. When
Got
I
it.
was in the military provided a check every 14 days. That check sustained me, sustained my family. Poetry didn't provide none of that, right? But
Right.
I grew weary of being in the military because it wasn't allowing me to exercise my space in poetry. And I was willing to abandon the military, the
Wow.
thing that provided for me, for a thing that wasn't giving me shit monetarily, but it was fulfilling me.
Wow.
So battling through that, battling
Mm-hmm.
through, hey, listen, you've already been in the military for over 10 years. You got about 8 years left. You can retire and get a pension for the rest of your life. So
Mm.
just deal with the deal with it for about 8 more years. Then you can be full blown. And it's versus me just vacating and leaving. And now I'm sleeping in people's car while I'm going to do these features for $40 because poetry was killing me. So
Yeah.
just being able to stand in there and have the patience to balance my fulfillment versus that thing that was providing until I
Right.
can make my fulfillment be that thing that provides.
Okay. I see. I get that. Yeah. All right. Number 9. What advice do you have for aspiring spoken word artists looking to find their voice?
Stop listening to everybody else's voice.
I
Um,
know, I know the same thing. That's what I say. Yeah.
yeah, I talk to myself a lot, right?
Mm.
And there's times where out loud, and there's times where I'll say something out of my mouth, and it's a thought that I've never, ever, ever explored in my life. It's an opinion that I've never said out loud, never explored in my life. And I say it out loud. And then when I say it, I'm sitting there shocked as if somebody said it to me. So I say that to say there's a lot of answers inside of us that we
Mm-hmm.
never give the light of day because we're so inundated with all the external information.
Yes.
So once we rip ourselves away from the external information, then the information we have will start to surface, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the same thing with a voice. As
Right.
soon as you rid yourself of all these other voices, then you'll hear your own, and then you can operate within your own. So I would absolutely say, hey, be supportive. During a time frame where I wasn't listening to other poets, I was still buying their merchandise. I just
Right.
wasn't listening to it. I was purchasing their CDs. I was purchasing their books. I wasn't reading them, and I wasn't
Right.
listening to them. So you can be supportive. You can support the art form, but at the same time, sometimes supporting yourself means to isolate.
I definitely agree with that. I understand that because I support, like, I don't really go out and before, I'm talking, this is all before COVID. Going to events, I have my open mic. Everybody would have merch. If you got merch, bring your merch, blah blah blah. I buy their merch. Never listened to their stuff, never read their book because I don't want to read a line and say, "Oh, damn, that's a dope ass line," and try to add that line into something that I write. I don't want to do that. So yeah, I definitely understand that because I don't want to plagiarize myself or something like that. So I pretty
Yeah,
much just take my time, and I may find how you say, an idea, or I may hear a word. Ooh, that sounds good. What can I add to that? You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
yeah, I definitely understand the significance of not really listening, especially if you're a poet. Any type of I believe every artist, it's fine to listen to some of their stuff, but don't buy don't read the work. As far as I'm concerned, me, I'm not reading your work, and it's not that I don't want to read your work. I don't want to sound like you, just like you said earlier.
yeah,
So yeah. So yeah, that makes
yeah.
a lot of sense.
You mind if I add to that answer before we go to number
Sure,
10?
absolutely.
I think another very important part of finding your voice is giving yourself the permission to be free.
Yes.
And I think there's a thing out there where artists feel like they are limited to just talking about a certain thing. They tend to find the popular topics and they gravitate towards the popular topics versus just talking about anything that matters to them. So giving yourself the permission to be free in what you talk about and how you express it. Sometimes,
Right.
especially as black people, we as black people, we don't want to do nothing if it even when we fight, when we get in a fighting stance, it gotta look cute. When we dance, it gotta look cute, which is why we talk about when other races dance, they dance for the feeling. They don't care what it looked like. They just close their
Right.
eyes and they go for the feeling. Not
Right.
us. It gotta look like everything we do, it has to look cute. Sometimes you have to be willing to sacrifice that cute in
Right.
order to get the message out the way. So giving yourself the freedom to do those type of things. And I also think part of finding your own voice is learning how you want to show up physically within this art form when it comes to the presentation. And a lot of times what we do is when we're looking for examples for how to be, we start looking at artists, other poets that we admire, right?
Okay.
And I think we got to reach beyond that and say, well, my style is a storyteller. So let me look at a great storyteller. Let me go watch Dave Chappelle.
Right.
My style is to be inspiring. So let me go look at a motivational speaker. So look at people in other genres of
Mm-hmm.
speaking in order and then pull from those. And then, versus just looking at, because we're just studying each other, then at some point we're just all going to be the same. So
And we
just broaden.
start acting like each other. We become twins. Like
Yeah.
looking
So
in the
just,
mirror. Yeah.
so we can just broaden the way that we research, I think would help people find their
Yes.
voice
Yes.
persevere. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Okay, number 10. Where you at, Tamika? Number 10. Thank you. How do you balance your responsibilities as an advocate, an author, and a performer?
Horribly.
Mm,
Yeah. I'm getting better at it, but advocate, advocate, author, performer is all one for me. So I think the balancing act for me is trying to balance that with family,
right,
right? And when you are a person that's ambitious, nothing is enough.
right.
You're always trying to figure out what's that next level of progress, and you always feel like you don't have enough time to do it. So as a result, it becomes very hard to lay time aside for other people and things that are important. We got this thing where we tend to feel like people are gonna live forever until they die, right? And then we
Mm-hmm.
become reactive after that. So balancing that is the is the task for me. And then because of some of the things we talked about earlier, briefly went over my
Mm-hmm.
experiences in the military. I'm very,
Yes.
very isolated. I'm very secluded. I'm
Okay.
absolute recluse. I love people, but um, it can be very taxing for me to share space for elongated periods of time. So if you
Mm-hmm.
combine that with my attachment to what I do, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
the best communicator
I
outside
see.
of, yeah. So that's the balance for me. It's just making sure that the people who I care about, people who are important to me, um,
Mm-hmm.
are awarded some of the time that I have
Right.
versus, you know,
Hmm. And you say you're a recluse. You're a recluse, a
yeah, introvert. I think
introvert.
introvert probably, yeah,
Introvert. Introvert.
to probably the most extremist level that one can
Okay.
exist. Um,
Mm-hmm. Okay. Number. Thank you, girl. Can you discuss your latest book and what messages you hope to convey through it?
my latest book. I wrote one book. It's called
Okay.
Blossom,
It's called what?
and it's Blossom.
Okay.
Yeah, I never aspired to write a book.
Okay.
And when my daughter was, she's 21 now. When my daughter was 15, she wrote a book, and I was like, "How she got a book and I ain't got a book?" So I just, I just wrote a book in response to her writing a book. I just did it because she did it, and then she wrote another one. I'm like, "No, you can have it. I'm not gonna keep doing this shit."
How
So
many books? Wait, how many books did she write?
she wrote two,
Okay.
but after I wrote the first one, I wasn't doing it again. So I wrote one book. It's called Blossom. It's not a concentrated body of work, which means it's not focused on one topic. It's just a wide array of poems.
Hmm.
And I don't advertise it much. Right now, it only exists on audiobook. Once I sold out of hard copies, I didn't reprint them. I just put the audiobook on streaming platforms. So it's on
Right.
Spotify and Apple Music. But I don't advertise it much for two reasons. One, as artists, we if you wrote a book report when you was in the sixth grade and you got a ton of praise over that book report, it was the best thing you ever wrote. If you read it
Right.
today, you'd be like, "Who the hell wrote this?" You know
Right.
what I mean? So as we evolve, the thing that was beautiful to us back then doesn't seem as efficient, right? So I
Right.
don't advertise for that reason. Two is
Hmm.
my daughter is she can write to be read. You can
Okay.
read something that she wrote, and everything she wants you to get out of it, you will. You'll get the image, you get everything. For
Hmm.
me, I think a lot is lost if I give you the words to something I wrote and let you read it. You're not going to read. There's going to be relationships between syllables, but if you don't recite that sentence the right way, you're not going to get that relationship between the syllables. So the creative devices will be lost. There's inflection. There's all types of things that I think I need my voice to aid me in, where she doesn't.
Right.
So I don't think books are my that's not my bag. You know what I
Okay.
mean? That's another great thing. So I wrote one called Blossom, and I
Okay.
don't know much about it. It's just a collection of poems. Just sometimes somebody will send me a line of
Hmm.
mine, and I'll compliment them on the line like they wrote it. And they're like, "No, that came out your book, right?" So I can't even tell you that I remember what's in it.
Right. Right. No, I understand. I have three. I've written three books.
Congratulations.
I've written three. I'm self-published. Um, William Washington said, "Greatness in the house, Mr. Obi West."
Blessings, brother.
Yeah, I wrote three books. I'm a house music artist. So I have a lot of music online, and then I produce my own music. I have my own record label, blah, 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 all that stuff, right? And everything for me centers around poetry, because that's all I know how to do is poetry. You know what I mean? So yeah, I understand that it's there's nothing like poetry. I breathe, eat. I have a poem called I think it's called poetry or something like that, poetry. And I know it says I eat, drink, and dream poetry, something like that. I can't remember the lines. But I definitely I used to be I have become that person again, like you. Like I don't really go out much. I do my shows, I write, I work on music, and I'm all right with just doing that. You know, people want me to come out. Mona, you need to come out. La 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 la. Nah, I'm good. I stay home and relax and
Yeah,
write. I write pieces. I'll write a line, one line. I'll hear one word. I'm like, huh, and I'll write a line. So I'm like you. I have pieces in my phone of unfinished poetry.
yeah,
I'll get back to it.
yeah.
I'll get back to it. You know. So, and again, I'll go in and I'll do one line, and then I may do another one and I'll do a different line. And it's just, it works for me though. All right, where we at, girl? Number 12. How do you see the evolution of spoken word in the digital age, especially with platforms like social media?
I think the exposure will be more grand. I think it
I
gives
think so.
artists confidence. Yeah, I think it gives artists confidence that they can reach a larger range of
Mm-hmm.
people, right? Versus the 40 to 100 people that's sitting in a room during an open mic. So with that confidence, I think artists are more encouraged. to put things
Yes.
together and put them on those platforms. So I think that there'll be more exposure. And the flip side of that is we have to make sure that we're doing the right thing with the exposure, because the world still is somewhat ignorant to spoken word. So now that we
Yes.
have these streaming platforms, now that we have social media, we have
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity to educate the world as to what this art form is. And if we do it the wrong way, then their first
Right.
impression of this thing will be a bad one, and we'll lose them forever.
Mm-hmm. What do you consider a wrong way? The wrong way.
Just something that's not authentic to you, right? If you have every poet who sounds like the popular poet, then it just sounds very monotone and it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
grab anybody's interest. But if you be unique and I be unique and that person be unique, then we're going to have just a wide array of different ways that this thing can sound. And that can be extremely impressive. There's a lot of people in the world, right? And there's a demographic that wants to hear this. There's a demographic that gravitates towards this. There's a demographic that gravitates towards this. And if we
Mm-hmm.
all be unique, we can snatch all those demographics. But if we all sound this way, then we're only getting these people.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I
Yep.
think we have to make sure that we're doing the right thing with that exposure. Because since we now have an opportunity to introduce world to spoken word, we want to introduce it in the way that they want to keep it. And they want
Mm-hmm.
to make it a household name the same way. You can get an artist that the most popular spoken word artist of our generation right now, most people don't know their name in the
Mm-hmm.
world.
Mm-hmm.
But a rapper who started yesterday is a household name.
Right.
The most popular poet of our generation probably can barely make a living just doing poetry.
Mm-hmm.
But a rapper who started a couple of days ago is flying in private jets.
That's right.
So in order for us to reach that level, or spoken word to reach that level, we just have to make sure that we are good stewards of it as we putting it on these platforms.
And that's gonna be kind of hard because we are popular in an unpopular genre of work, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
right. I think we
You
have an
know.
opportunity to make that. I think it's unpopular because of the way historically it has been presented. It's been presented as something that's hard to understand. It's been
Right.
presented as being encoded. It's like trying to decipher something. The stars and the moons was talking to the birds, and people are like, what the fuck does that even mean, right? So this is how poetry has been presented from the Shakespearean age. That's the reason it's unpopular, because we don't really understand. If we're going to gravitate towards something that we don't understand, it better have a nice beat. Then
Yes.
we'll listen to it all day.
Right.
But if we don't understand it and it don't have a beat,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So now we have an opportunity to make an unpopular art form popular if we manage it right.
Right. Well, I know that Baba Abiodun from The Last Poets. Have you heard of them before? The
Yes.
Last Poets? Whew. I love their 70s flow, their 60s flow, their Black Power flow, their fuck the police flow. I love their flow. And I've done a few stages with Abiodun. I've done a few stages with him. He has a show on every Sunday. He does a show online, an online show also. An online
Mhm.
open mic, online open mic on Sundays. And yeah, I like that type of poetry.
Yeah.
I can understand because that's where I come from. You understand? That's where
Mhm.
we come from. You start talking like Shakespeare, and I'm like, what? The fuck is
Right.
he? Like you said, what the fuck is you talking about? What are
Right.
you talking about? Yeah. So yeah, I understand. That's funny. All right, number 13. What is your favorite piece of work that you've created, and why does it hold a special place for you?
Shit.
Come on.
Favorite piece of work that I created.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a favorite piece of work that I
You
created.
don't have a favorite?
Mm-mm. Um, that changes with the last thing that I wrote, right? The last thing I wrote is my favorite until I write something else, right? So yeah, I can make up some bullshit for the sake of answering this question, but if I'm completely
Right.
honest, I don't have a
No,
favorite. I do have some
I
things I really, really appreciate. I have a
mhm,
poem called Mrs. Rat Race, and Mrs. Rat
okay.
Race is from a homeless man's perspective. He's actually conversing with a woman who's staring at him with this judgmental look because he's homeless. And he's
Mhm.
expressing to her how you looking at me like I'm beneath you. But I got a tent over there for a home that I own. It can be packed up and repositioned, but it can never be repossessed. While you obsessed with your open floor plan, even after you done paying for it, the tax man can still come take it for your ass. So the reality is, you're the proud owner of a home that you really don't even own. You just forever renting, right? So he's given his
Ooh,
perspective of. So that poem I really appreciate because it allows us to see just because we have shower water and Dove
right,
that that doesn't make life beautiful. There's people who we're looking at as less than, and life is beautiful in their eyes, and we
mm,
the stupid ones, right? So
right.
in their eyes, so it lends another perspective to an underrepresented demographic from an
Mm.
underrepresented demographic.
Let me ask you a question before we get to the next question. Do you write? How do you feel about erotic poetry?
How do I feel about it? I think
Hmm.
that's the 2 or 3 part answer. First off, I feel, what's the word I'm looking for? Erotic, or whatever the word I'm looking for is part of life, right? So I feel
Right.
like I have tons of erotic poems that I
I've
never
heard
choose.
some of your work online, and I don't think you mean. I don't know if you mean it to sound the erotic, but when I hear your poetry, some of your pieces, I was like, "Well, goddamn!" You just put one up the other day, and I can't remember it, but I remember saying to myself, damn, I would love to be a piece of that poem because that poem was so dope. And I was like, but it's not erotic, but it can if you listen, if you really listen to it. To me, and that's just my opinion. I
Yeah,
felt like that poem was kind of erotic. I love you guys have really got to hear his work. You've got to go to Instagram and check out his work, Obi West, because he is amazing.
thank
All
you.
right, next question. Okay. How has traveling and performing internationally influenced your perspective as an artist?
Great question. Traveling. I'll answer the traveling part. They say that most people only use like 2% of their brain or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like traveling, when you expose yourself to different cultures, I think that's what grants you access to those other percentages of your brain. So traveling internationally for the military as well as for poetry has just allowed me to see that there's more than one way to live.
Mm-hmm.
There's more than one perspective that's healthy. It just pretty much gave me access to a wide array of lifestyles, which
Okay.
gives me, when you perspective is what we write, right? We take our perspective and we put it on. So the more perspective you have, the more you have to write about. So it's really broadened my options, my
Mm-hmm.
selections for topics, the way I see things. So it's giving me the ammunition to shoot even more.
Okay. I see. Okay. Number 15. What do you hope your legacy will be within the spoken word community? Hmm.
I don't know if I care.
Okay.
Um, if I can expand on the question,
Mm-hmm.
what I want my legacy to be within the spoken word community is I care about the art form.
Okay.
And what would I want my legacy to be amongst the community, even people who aren't part of spoken word,
Okay.
is that people are important, right? People are important. I think people is the most important thing on earth. I think once we realize that and start living according to that, then things will be a lot better. And that also we as individuals need to be the
Okay.
most important person on earth to us. So I'm huge on self care.
Mm-hmm.
I'm huge on healthy levels of selfishness.
Okay.
So I would want my legacy to be that they prioritize yourself, but that doesn't mean to mistreat or debase anyone else. Just care about people, and every day you live is one day less that you have left. So just maximize it.
Wow. That's dope. That's serious. Okay, last question. Are there any upcoming projects or performances you're excited about that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Private sessions, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Private sessions are starting back up. I mean by that is I did some private sessions for the first
Okay.
two calendar year quarters of 2024 this year, and then I took a break because I started to do other things. In
Mm-hmm.
February, private sessions are starting back up.
Okay.
I have a link on my IG. The IG is at OBWest,
Okay.
OBBIEWEST. And there's a link that has all the upcoming private session shows. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Are there can where you have oh, excuse me, let me get my words together. Um your all your links. Let me hear all where can they find you? Where can they find you other than let's say Instagram? Where else?
Instagram is the primary platform, but everywhere
Mm-hmm.
is OBWest. Everywhere.
Okay.
LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Christian Mingle, everywhere is OBWest. OBBIEWEST. Oh, Brain Dump Series on obwest.com. I have a
Okay.
Brain Dump Series, which is a collection of, there was a period of time where I was writing poems at a rate faster than what I could recite them. So they just sitting in the closet with tags on them. So I took those
Okay.
poems and I created a series called the Brain Dump Series that's on my website, subscription based, and you can hear or see videos of me reciting
Okay.
those those older poems. And everything is on obwest.com or at obwest.
Okay. Do you have a poem that you can recite for us right now? Little piece, half a poem, full poem, you know.
Yeah, I do actually, since it's kind of, I guess, aligns with some of the things we talked about
Yeah,
and
sure.
some of the description that I gave of me. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's absolutely amazing having a mind with a maze in it. Me personally, I can spend days in it. I navigate easily, but when others gaze in it, it's hazy. They're like, hey, is he crazy? Just maybe, but he can't be because he speaks so sensibly. See, it's like nobody gets me. Even family feels that I'm unfamiliar. They say he's a locked vault with a lost combination. And trying to get in is like trying to open a high security safe with a shoelace. He just strings us along, but he never comes in a jar. He's a jar with this tinted glass and this tightened top that don't twist off. And he gets pissed off when he's questioned. He only answers to his daughter, his seed, Brooklyn Elise. At least she has the key, but we're sort of kept at arm's reach. We're wondering, why is this? Maybe he needs to schedule a site visit because he speaks in images, but his feelings aren't quite vivid. We got a feeling he's been hoarding hard times in the basement of his belly, and we're afraid if he doesn't purge, hell will emerge. We can't read him. He's written in Arabic. He's a man grenade that doesn't talk. He just writes it.
Ooh.
He just might explode if we pull his pin. He carries these Colorado winters in his chest. His sentiments are like icicles. What we call cold, he calls a coping mechanism. And what's even colder is we're starting to think that he's a cutter.
Mm.
Not himself, but others. He cuts folks off like bad traffic. And if he feels like you're at his neck, he'll cut ties. And we're lost in how he's so copacetic. We're lost. We can't tell if he loves because he carries the emotions of a dead emoji. We couldn't even contract you all to move him.
Mm.
So what do you do? When the only way that you know to live has been killing those that you live for. When all your loved ones have thrown in their hand because they can't win with the way you deal. When your hard face is considered as heartless. When you're the black sheep and not even your shepherd knows how to receive you.
Mm. Damn. My God, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Obi West, thank you so much for sitting with me, and I got to know you a little better. You got to know me a little better.
Absolutely.
The audience got to know you. I mean, I am so gracious and grateful to have you on my show tonight. I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
And
no
I'm
problem.
definitely gonna hit you up soon because me and my homegirl J Nicole, when we get to that particular subject matter, I would love for you to come on so you can promote what you do and we can chit chat about that because that's really important. Okay.
Okay. Before I go, I just want to tell you I thank you, not just for me, but on behalf of anybody who has something to say, and you're providing a platform for them to
Mm.
say it. So this is probably more medicinal than you realize. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So you have my info. I'll be in touch, and I'll definitely let you know when we start the new show. I'm ready to do that particular show on Uptown with Mona and Jay Nicole, and we'll talk soon. Thanks so
Absolutely.
much for
Thank you.
being here, honey. You have a good night. Okay.
You as well.
Later.
All right.
Peace. Peace and love, honey. All right, y'all. I thought that was really nice. I'm so grateful. Thank y'all for hanging out. Thank y'all for sticking around with me for this hour. And don't forget, here we go again. Let me put this. I want to thank y'all for hanging out with Mona Baudet and Uptown with Mona. Again, every Monday at 7 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, and sometimes Instagram. And then again, every Thursday at 6 p.m. on withoutwarningradio.com. Don't forget, please, 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 y'all, go to Uptown with Mona, the last name Baudet on Facebook, and join that page. Please, that page is feeling too lonely. And also my Instagram page, uptown.with.mona on Instagram. Can y'all please go over there and join too? I mean, come on. Come hang out with Mona. All right. And if you'd like to donate, because we take donations, because those donations will fund every other thing that I do and all this other stuff. And the Cash App is Uptown with Mona. And if you want to be interviewed, or you know someone that wants to be interviewed, or you have an interesting story, send me an email, uptownwithmona@gmail.com, and we'll get it popping. And don't forget December 16th at Comedy in Harlem, 147th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue at 7 p.m. The Naughty List, a Mocha Lounge reunion. It's an all erotic open mic, not an open mic, it's an all erotic poetry event. And tickets are going fast, so y'all need to get your tickets, okay? We're going to have poetry, erotic poetry, and erotic question and answers, and some other little adult games. So y'all really need to get them tickets, okay? And because I'll be there, and I might spit one or two, or I don't know, we'll see. So I want to thank you all for coming out. I'll see you all again next Monday at 7 p.m. right here. Same bat time, same bat channel, y'all. Peace. Have a good night. Thank you so much. And that's a wrap for today's show, y'all. Thanks again for tuning in to Uptown with Mona. Be sure to join us again next week for another exciting episode. Until then, I'm your host, Mona Baudet, and I'm saying peace and love. Have a wonderful day.